this kind of leads me to talking about this a little bit. You've mentioned now we've talked about being involved in the Slinger National, talked about being involved with the national tour. You talk about the Wisconsin State Championships. You just alluded to Oktoberfest weekend. When you look at the marquee events that you guys are involved in, and you can go back to this year in May, the list of events that you guys are involved with, what does that mean to be a part of such historic events up here in the Midwest?
Yeah, I think it says a lot to the product that the teams and the truckers have put on. It's a well
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Tuesday Track Talk with two of your Three Stones pit crew and special guest Drew from the Midwest Truck Series, which I call you a special guest, but you're starting to become a recurring guest here on the
exactly.
podcast.
I love it. I love everything you guys do. So thanks for having me on.
No, we love talking about the Midwest Truck Series, and I think every time we're at the track or we're watching it at home for whatever reason, we always make it a point because I think the two of us agree, like especially on a weekend up here, that's some of the best racing that gets put on, and I think it's something that just needs to be talked about a ton because that's what we need to promote is what is going good in the world of racing as well. So.
Yeah, and it's fun for us to be at all the big shows, and so I think when you know that the trucks are at a race, it's a show it's going to be a big deal. And when we look at the schedule this year, I'm so excited for the things that we have in the works, excited for some of the things that we've been talking about and teasing and throwing out there for some different special events, and so I'm always one, how do we continue to make this bigger and better each and every year? And as soon as I think we can't do it, we come up with more ideas. And so we probably implement maybe 25% of the ideas that I want. That's what I tell people. Like, we're growing now, and like we haven't even really, I don't even think we've done a lot of the things that I would love to do. And so every year, if we can put a few of them into place, we'll continue to grow this into what it is. And this year there's a lot of new trucks, a lot of new excitement. The social page is rocking, and it's crazy to think that we're inside of 2 weeks before we're going to be at the Dells for the Icebreaker.
Absolutely. And then we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But you mentioned like setting things up for the schedule. I want to hit on really two of them, and really they're both at Slinger. One, you got paired up with the Stars National Tour for their race, and then you got the prelude to the Slinger Nationals again this year as well. So those two big races at Slinger, like what's the ambition level, especially on that night where you're racing with the national tour, of trying to be like that, the event of the night, and kind
Yeah,
of put them guys to shame a little bit.
yeah. And so I mean, I think how people have quickly forgot, like, that was a traditional weekend that we used to have with the tour, and it just happened to be at the track that was 4 times as big and a little south of Slinger.
Yeah.
So we ran that weekend for since 2019, I believe, down at the Milwaukee Mile for Father's Day, and so then we were there with the ASA Stars National Tour. And so when they made this switch, kind of when they switched up their schedule and went away from Milwaukee, just the dates didn't line up for us. We had stuff going on already. I think their first year, they ran the Howie Leto on Friday, and we were already there, and then they went to Slinger, and so like it just never worked out for us to get there on that with the Stars National, and again, me selfishly wanting to be at all the big shows. When the national tour comes to town, we want to try to make that work. And we already have 2 races at Madison. They're running their Madison date on a Tuesday. I'm trying to avoid weekday races with the trucks, and so it worked out in the schedule. And if we remember back to 2022, we did something similar, that we actually ran 2 back-to-back races at Slinger, and called them the duels. And so Tom G won one, and maybe that was Miller won one or something, or I don't exactly remember back to them. But what's kind of cool for these guys is that they get to go to a racetrack, they get to take it back to their shop, they get to unload, and they don't have to change a whole lot of setup, because we're going right back 3 weeks later. We're going right back to the same track, and so it gives them kind of this weekly vibe feel, that they get to do 2 races. And when we did it before, the first race it was just a normal Sunday night. We were the show. We ran 60 laps. It was was fun. And then we went to the Nationals, and so we only ran 40 there. And so it was almost like the first race was the bigger of the two. And now this one, it's like, which one out of those two, which one do you pick is the bigger race out of both of them? Like they're both going to be races that people want to win. And then we've really created a home with the prelude to the Nationals to help kick off Slinger Nationals. And that's the race that is our Nationals. That's the race that people want to win for the trucks. It doesn't matter if we're racing on Sunday or Tuesday. It's a one-day show. And I think now with what Travis and his team created down there with this Monday bracket challenge, it gives fans something to go to on Monday. And so now there's on-track racing, cash-paying events all 3 nights. And so, again, we're super excited to go down for that Sunday and help kick off the Nationals week.
I was gonna say Jefferson would be the other one too. You had that weekend last year where you had back-to-back nights. Doing that again this year, except both of them are now going to be points nights. I'm assuming that got a lot of great feedback to be able to do that again. And again, it's guys you can camp out for the weekend and kind of do your thing down there as well, in order to make that trip worth it for a lot of guys.
Yeah, and I'm a really big believer in that what we're doing now, it's cool to live in the moment, but this sport is built on the memories and built on the stories. And the teams you look at our schedule and there's story opportunities all throughout it. I haven't raced a whole lot. I raced a go-kart, but one of my most fun weekends was we ran 2 nights in a row. And when you have some adversity, you have something maybe that happens one night and you're up thrashing all night and you're working on it and you're scrapping and clawing to get it onto the racetrack, or you just get to race 2 nights in a row. And it's like dirt does it all the time. On asphalt, we don't do it a whole lot. And so this is just another weekend that these teams and the racers can make memories. My goal is in 30 years, they're going to be sitting around drinking beer in the shop and say, hey, remember when we ran 2 nights at Jefferson and we sucked the first night and we were good the second, or we wrecked and we taping and riveting the body back together. And I don't want anybody to have to work on their truck, but those are the stories that get told for years to come. And so we're working on something special. I don't know if it'll happen, but we're pushing to make that Saturday night a 75 lapper at Jefferson, to go 50 Friday night, 75 laps. We've never done a race that long. It's going to come down to financials. It's going to come down to scheduling, but because of the way that Jefferson split up the 2-day, we used to always be with the late models and the sportsmen, but now we're going to be with 602s, I think legends and bandos or something like that. And so the trucks are the star that weekend. And so why not make that Saturday deal? Because we're only going there one weekend. We used to go in the summertime as well, but we're, again, due to the scheduling and all that, we just couldn't make a summer July race work there. And so it's like, what if we put all of our eggs into the one weekend basket at Jefferson and go, let's make it a 75 lap shootout and make it a little bit longer on the quarter mile, the Wisconsin action track. And so now it makes Friday night kind of the preview night. And where, again, I think back to dirt, how many times they'll race Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday's the big show. Everybody's there racing Thursday and Friday, but Saturday's the one you want to win. And so this may give it a little bit of that feel going into right before we go into Fest and then the following.
Yep.
This kind of leads me to talking about this a little bit. You've mentioned, now we've talked about being involved in the Slinger National, talked about being involved with the National Tour, you talk about the Wisconsin State Championships. You just alluded to Oktoberfest weekend. When you look at the marquee events that you guys are involved in, and you can go back to this year in May, the list of events that you guys are involved with, what does that mean to be a part of such historic events up here in the Midwest?
Yeah, I think it says a lot to the product that the teams and the truckers have put on. It's a well-run organization. We make it easy for the promoters. We come in and really handle that side, so from the race op side. But then at the end of the day, if the product's not there, if the racers aren't showing up, no promoter is going to want to bring us in. So if we had 10 to 13 trucks at a race, probably not getting in all these shows. But since the fans, the racers have supported us, the fans clearly continue to support because they keep showing up to these big events. And so it says a lot for what we've been able to build over the last 8 years, but John Wood took over in 2014. So since that day, to be able to be invited from the promoting side, the promoters are the one that makes the money. They need to make sure that the product on track is enough for the fans to want to come out and support it. And so because of everything in the product that gets delivered time and time again by the truckers, I think that makes it much easier for a promoter to say, yes, we're willing to bring you in.
Kind of touching on 2025 here for a little bit. We were kind of talking before we press record here. Pretty consistent as far as driver entries for this year. 48 drivers made an attempt. 14 of those were 80% for the year, and then seven made all 15. Of that, what stands out most to you? And then also, what's a stat that surprises you more? The 10 different winners throughout the season, or those four multi-time winners that you had in 2025?
It's the 10 different winners. To win something, to win a feature in the Truck Series is a big deal. I think we had 6 first-time winners on the season, and we finally had a rookie win. And so to be able to hit really every storyline, when we go back through it, Griesbach really breaks through at the icebreaker.
Mhm.
He kind of set the tone. We had no idea, right, like what the summer was going to be for him, and it was like that set the tone. And then we go to Joshier Classic, and Eugene Gregorich Jr. the third finally gets that breakthrough win. 2022 was his rookie year. Been so close. He lost, you look back at it, he lost the rookie of the year by 1 point in 2022, and he had a chance at the championship in 2024. And so I think he ended up losing by, I think total 19 was the difference at the end of that. And so it's like 20 points, and 20-point swing the other way, and he could have been a champion and a rookie of the year already and hadn't won a race. And so that team has been a supporter of the Midwest Truck Series for several years, just a really good family. And so to see them finally break through, 2024, they passed the most trucks in feature competition. And at the banquet, we gave them a bottle of the Forgotten Coast bourbon. And so Forgotten Coast K9 did a release, and so they were the sponsor, and so they got a bottle of bourbon, and they said it'll sit in the trailer and on the shelf until they finally win one. And so they got to open up that bottle at Madison.
That's awesome.
To go through. And then again, we had a rookie, first rookie in Derek Meyer to win since 2021, since Tristan Swanson won in 2021. And so you look at all the storylines. Nick Van kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe had some luck on some of the races. Probably shouldn't have won the Jefferson race. And Gregorich and Rux get tied up. And Robbie wins a race too at his home track. And so he'd been dominant in 2024 there when in limited starts. And so to win a Truck Series feature when it means something, that's when we know we have the right competition. And again, when people want so bad, when they're holding on to a bottle of bourbon, we go back to the stories that are told in the shops. Like they'll remember opening that, and that's something that's cool. That's something I think that this sport has lost a little bit. Baseball's gone through it too, right? Like baseball was built on stats and heritage and history, and kind of struggled through how do we connect that younger generation to care about the stats. And that's something I think that I take extreme pride in, to try to educate people on what it is that we're doing and why it matters.
About to say you went off on your stats with over winners throughout the years, and specifically for the Dells. I'm trying to flip through Facebook here real quick to come up with some, but I know during the off season you went off on the stats this year for the Truck Series.
Yeah,
How
go ahead.
I was gonna say, just how cool is it to kind of look back at whether drivers that have run the Truck Series in the past, or who has won, and even places that have been raced at, and how it's grown over the years. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's why we do this. None of us are making a ton of money at it, really. And this level, not really any money at it. But to be able to appreciate James Swan winning 4 in a row at a track like that, it doesn't happen very often. I think back to some of the other. You think back to Travis Sauter winning, I think 9 Super Late Model shows at Madison or something like that. And I was like, that stuff isn't normal. And so to be able to appreciate it in the moment, the sooner that we can appreciate it, I think the more connected to it that we feel. All too often we look back on these afterwards and whoa, those were the good days, and what's that quote? Like, I wish I would have known that these were the good days during during the middle of it.
Yep.
But you look back through the Dell's winner list, and it's like Sam Mayer, he's running an O'Reilly car now. He has a win in the truck series. You look at a Parker Retzloff, and the list goes on. And again, if we're not putting these names and these stats in front of people, nobody cares. And so why would people want to spend thousands of dollars to do this? Again, we're not making the money on it. So at least if we can recognize those that are putting in the hard work, that definitely makes it worth it.
So you speak of the Dells. You guys have put out your anticipated entry list, or guys have indicated that there's going to be 40 trucks going to be at the Dells on April 11th. What's the worst part of that and the best part of that?
The best part is the most we've ever had at the Dells is 32, and so to think that we're going to have 8 more, that list, if I'm being honest, is probably going to be closer to 34, 35 in talking to people. There's one racer that playing baseball and the coach isn't going to get him off, let him off. There's a couple others that just maybe the truck's probably not going to be done. So I was having fun on Friday night when I put that out because I wanted to be able to put out a 40 list. There's the challenging things are things like these haulers, all these tracks were built in the 60s, and haulers were open haulers and dollies and all this. We don't have room in the pits for 165-foot trailers. And so it's like it's some of these like logistical things that become a nightmare. And these crews, like a lot of people again used to go to the racetrack and you may have you and your homeboy in front seat and that was it. Now these teams, there's a lot of resources and a lot of knowledge that go into these teams, and so trying to get those that want to park next to each other pitted next to each other. So from the logistical side, it does change up our race format a little bit, and so I'm one that I love consistency, but at the end of the day we can't split our normal, if we have 40 trucks, we can't split them into 3 heats and just expect it to go well. I'm also not one that if we have a beef each, I really don't like having a guy get into victory lane and win a heat race, but then not transfer through a last chance. Like from a fan's perspective, it's confusing. And we ran into it last year. I think Scott Hansen won a heat race. The third was the first, but it's a slow heat race, but didn't transfer into the feature. And so like in the fan's mind, that just doesn't make sense. And so a race like this, we'll change up our race format and go to a format that we created with Tundra, where we'll have qualifying heats and the top 14 will be locked in. And that way the top 14 race against each other. Everybody else is a qualifier to get into the feature. Because again, the fans can understand that. They like the drama. The racers, I love the drama of the race of a qualifier. Just that's what, again, the adrenaline of not being locked in is something that I think we need to appreciate. And so I can't imagine that you're down there in qualifying and we push everybody. We have the trucks launch from the center and go back to the center. I'd put a camera down there with them because these guys that are on the bubble, you're sitting there in line and getting pushed up and the staging guy points in. You know that you have 3 laps to lay down one of the fastest 14 laps. And if not, your day just got longer, as they say. And so that's what I love about having that many trucks is it makes everybody step up, and the only one that's guaranteed into the show on the icebreaker is Brandon Reichenberger because he's the champion and he has provisional number 1 should he need it. He's not going to want to use one of his 2 on the year, but everybody else, you have to be in the top 14, otherwise you may not make it.
You kind of alluded to a little bit of your format, and you've kind of talked about the format a little bit. What are maybe some other changes or things you're going to do a little differently that you've talked about or done in the offseason that you're going to implement in 2026?
Yeah, the biggest one, and it's some things that the fans probably don't notice, is we used to put the winner. So when this started, again, there's 14 trucks, 12 to 14 trucks. So they wanted the parity. And so it was very kind of support series-ish of you want a feature, you go behind the invert the following race. It used to be you started all the way at the back, but again, you had 12 to 14 trucks. So that needed to adjust. And then 2025, I went to the top 2 from a feature, had to start behind the invert.
Nope.
But we have some low inverts. And so when we look at a place like Madison, this past year, Derek Meyer qualifies on the pole, rolls a 1, so the invert's 6. Well, the top 2 from the icebreaker were in the top 6, so Derek Meyer's fast time, it starts 4th. And I was like, okay, we probably need to do something with this, and it's so hard to pass in the trucks now because they are so close. We made the decision, we talked to the comp council, and we've eliminated that rule. And so I joked in our comp council meeting, I was like, we're kind of growing up. It's like we're putting our big boy pants on now, and we're a legit series, because most touring series don't do that. It's each race straight up, race, kind of race where you qualify. And so we're doing that this year, and we're going to see how it goes. And that's what we tell people in the comp council meeting is I played around with roles and formats, and I think 3 years in a row I changed our dice roll, and we used to do just 4, 5s, and 6s, and I've played with the number, and I keep all the stats so I can see what the numbers are, and so I try not to make anything from an emotional decision. It's all based on facts, and so that's probably going to be the biggest from a format change that fans may or may not notice. We floated the idea of changing up the points and doing something a little bit different in terms of like inverts in the heats and all that. And honestly, I was for it, and it got voted down by the racers. And their number one reason is the last 2 years, 2024, the championship came down to 9 points, and 2025, it came down to 12 points. Why would we change anything when the championship's coming down to the last 5 laps of the season? Just leave it alone and see how this plays out. And trust me, NASCAR is going to find this out. You may have somebody in a season-long format that runs away with it. That's just just how it happens sometimes.
Yep.
But I'm not one to manufacture the drama, and so no different than we may have a race that finishes side by side, or we may have a race at the Dells that the winner wins by 5 seconds. They hit on it, they got lucky, and let's move on. That's this sport sometimes. The NFL, if there's a blowout, they don't change anything. I just looked and saw highlights. What UConn beat Duke on the last second. Obviously, that's how you want it drawn up, but Duke could have destroyed UConn and won by 20. And and that's just how it works sometimes. And so we decided not to change much because, again, last 2 years we have two championships divided or separated by 21 total points. So
no, good deal. So we've all seen that. We're going to kind of go random here on this one.
Perfect. That's my style.
We've all seen the ton of opinions, kind of touching on the NASCAR side of things. YouTubers climbing into the ranks of racing.
Oh
Specifically, boy. Cletus and Squirrel. Kellen loves this. He's a big Cletus fan. Watches every episode of it. I've gotten to watch a few of them over the years. What's your thought as a fan or just an outsider on the racing side of things of these guys, these personalities coming in and running these higher races?
I don't look at them as a personality. I think if you have rules, you have rules, and so it's fine. If you have an approval process, you need to follow the approval process. If you don't, if Skip Flores doesn't get approved for a modified race at Richmond, and he's ran modifieds before, that's owned by NASCAR. So I'll give you an example of how I do it in the trucks. Is we have our Rookie of the Year program, and somebody will ask me if they qualify for rookie, and I just go to our procedures, I screenshot it, and I say, do you qualify for the rookie? The procedures are going to be what determines if you qualify for it, not me. Now, we have some leeway if we want to, but at the end of the day, if you have an approval process, I think you need to follow that. That would actually make everyone's life a lot easier. We don't have that in here, at this level. And so I think somebody needs to be in their ear. And if somebody is qualifying 15th, what we do here is if you've never been in a race car before, we'd probably ask if that's really where you want to start. But we do it in the trucks. Here's another thing is our trucks used to make rookies start in the back for the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
We don't do that anymore because at the end of the day, I think that each team needs to be responsible for their own driver. So I honestly don't have a problem with it. If they have the funds, if they have the money, if they have the ability, go do it. if you have the talent, no other sport, there's not an approval process if I want to go try out for an NFL team. I don't have to have gone to college. I don't have to have done Pop One. I could just go. And so if we want, it seems so counterintuitive that a lot of NASCAR fans are, we need this all merit based, but at the same time, we're the ones judging merit before they get on the racetrack. We don't know if Cletus can do it. We don't know if some of these guys can do it.
Yep.
So why is it not okay? Is it because we think they're buying their ride? Well, these kids are buying their ride too. I could probably name you three or four drivers that are probably in the O'Reillys that probably shouldn't be there, whether they got approved or not.
Yep.
And so if we can get back to where this is just all merit based, like we do in everything else, like who cares how they got there? Like, unless you have a process. Like if you have a process, I'm fine with it. That says you need to start this many, you need to do this, you need to do that. But at the end of the day, it's not my money. It's not your money. I don't know why anybody really cares.
Yeah.
If they wreck, we can turn the TV off and go on with our lives.
Yep. For sure.
What do you guys think? Are you guys split?
Yeah, we
gonna
are.
let me go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say kind of the same thing, like the merit or the approval process. I was always said like I think his ARCA starts got him into the truck series, but I don't know if he had the number of truck series starts, or even the races at certain tracks in the truck series in order to get him in the Xfinity car. That was my thing.
But what determines that?
They have a test session
I know, but like at the end of the day, like even if he got approved and he goes and destroys 8 cars, what's the difference?
no, there isn't.
Yep.
So
Ultimately.
this is what, like, again, I'm fine if you have an approval process, just follow it. But what are we trying to gain out of this? Like, do I think he should probably be at Daytona? No, but I think that's somebody, like, again, I've never been in a super late model, and I'm probably not going to Winchester. But
Yep.
we live in a different world than they do. That's where his sponsors are. That's what he wants to do. If he goes out and destroys, like, I don't know. I don't see why everybody cares so much.
Of course,
We're
Nick,
just
it's-
NASCAR elitists that
yeah.
like
For
old school style.
Well, it's so to that point, like I just had this thought. I don't know why I didn't think of this long ago. Like for as much as I've read of just old school NASCAR, like you're talking 40s, 50s, 60s, like Daytona 500. Guys brought their own cars to the 500 every year, and that was the only race that they ran every year. Just guy had a money to build a car, was able to bring it down there, and he tried to qualify his way in.
Exactly. Now again, I think somebody may say, "Hey, this is your first trip to Daytona. We may just want to start this first run at the back. Like, let's get used to it, especially if there's not practice or anything like that." And so, again, is an ARCA car going to help you determine? He's not going to feel the same era in an ARCA car as he does in a truck. Like the only way you're going to ever feel that is by doing it. And so,
Yeah, I was one that I said there's going to be a car owner that's going to take a chance knowing he has no experience. That's he's going to bring the financial piece with him, and Nice was the one that said we'll take a chance, and it lasted 4 laps. Like they knew that was a possibility. It's just somebody was willing to do it. So I do think, like, at least on that side of things, from those two in particular, I think the genuine excitement about learning the racecraft, I think, is cool. When you see these guys, like, watching them, their interviews, and is it part of it coming from their YouTube? Potentially, but I think the genuine excitement to learn about the sport and what it really takes, I think that piece is kind of cool because when you see a lot of the interviews now, they're very, I'm going to say, cookie cutter interviews. Like it's the same conversation we had before it started. It was it's sailing off in there and taking someone out, but it's I just misjudged the corner. No one will openly say, "Well, I wrecked somebody because I was pissed off about something." So, I just think the character and personality of that they're seeing the excitement of the sport is good for it. And I think it also is part of the change in the marketing approach to the sport, right? Like their new approach to how they were going to market, they were going to go after a younger generation of people to try to reconnect them. Well, how do you do that? You connect with the biggest automotive YouTube channel potentially in the world, and you draw him in, and you go, okay, he's 30 years old, and he's going to try to do this, and he's bringing in a different market, and and go from that standpoint. So I think that part of it is a piece that I think is cool, just because they are genuinely like excited to try to learn how to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I think you talk about the excitement, and I think we all like we're probably our own worst enemies on this. Is we I don't want to say we take it for granted, but they are excited to be there, and that's what this like rejuvenated like spirit, like this youthful spirit, is what you get from them. You don't get that same from the other guys that have been on the grind for 38 weeks out of 40. I think what they race 38 weeks and 40 total weeks or something like that. It's
Yeah.
I think they get two breaks. Um, that wears on somebody, and so to be able to see some guy come in and be like, this is badass. Like,
Yep.
I think sometimes we need that reminder of like, oh, what we do is pretty awesome. We should be excited to be here. We should be excited to roll out onto the racetrack or walk through the gate. And there's again, we just all get so used to it. We're just all, up here. We at least have a break. We have a winter break, so that way we all get excited again for the icebreaker. And so I feel like down south where they can race all year round, or dirt racing, you're right back to the grind. Starting in January and February, and so. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for the fresh style and the new spirit. And what's more dangerous, putting them in a truck at Daytona, or if you wanted to go rip a 410 sprint car, nobody would say anything.
No. Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Another curiosity question on my part, unless Colin was,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I feel like this off season, you've had a lot bigger social media presence from the Midwest Truck Series side on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever the case it may be. Do you feel like that interaction or that presence has impacted as far as what you're trying to post or what you're trying to do at the track? Or are you just trying to throw something out there to see what it does type of
Yeah,
thing?
so like I'm a marketing guy, and I should probably tell people like have a content calendar and have it planned. And this thing from 2018 has really just been wing it and see what happens, if we're
Shoot from
being
the hip.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, I have an overarching like idea of where I want it to go. I think the social interactions have just been years and years of building what we've built. That there's enough people now, there's enough excitement. When you have guys buying trucks and some big names, you have Brady Bill coming in, who's late model guy. You have Chris Purdy that owns a truck. We have Blake Brown, that's a former 2014 champion that's ran super lates, coming back to the truck series. Derek Dorr took a few years off and is coming back. And so I think when you have guys come back to the series and be excited, that we talk about Cletus's energy, that energy starts to carry through, and people are like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this. And we've always, maybe it's my own doing, but we've always had this like little chip on our shoulder of we're going to go prove everybody wrong. And we're going to prove that we can do this, and we can build this from the ground up and do it the right way. And so I have a format of the social content I know that works online. And so we just lean into it. We lean into the relationships. Again, we lean into making things a big deal. It's not hard for me to go grab a photo from the Dells and put up the list of winners. Like that's, 5 minutes of work to be able to go on there, but it gets 100 and some engagement. It's looking at 152 engagement, shares, comments. And again, people like to see that. And so, like I said, I have an idea of where I want it to go. I can't give away all the secrets, but it's, I tell people in my industry, I said, if you want to make something a big deal, you have to make it a big deal. And so if I'm not going to make it a big deal, why would any racers make it a big deal? And so the more that we can do, and the more that we can push forward as a collective group, you're seeing that work now. What we have now, it didn't just start in 2026. This started 5, 6, 7 years ago. Just nobody saw it then. We were doing the same amount of work. It just took now until the mainstreams have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've talked about the excitement of, drivers coming in or coming back to the series. When you look to 2026, what are you most excited for in 2026?
The truck count. I think based on my count right now, I think we have like 22 that are saying that again, we're recording this March 29th, so there's 22 to say they're planning on being full time, but as we know, that can change. But the fact that new trucks are being built, a guy like James Swan, who's a legend in the truck series, the fact that he's taking the time and the money to invest in building a new truck says a lot of where he thinks the series is going to be able to go. Grant Griesbach finished second last year. They're building a brand new truck. So there's a lot of kind of this new technology that's coming in that it's just new. Like these other ones are, 10 years old, these chassis. And so it'd be interesting to see how they compete. But Brandon Reichenberger still has his old truck. He didn't build a new one. He hasn't built a new one in 2 years and has 2 championships. And so being able to see the blend and the talent level that just continuously pushes each other. And you've heard us talk before of Brandon Reichenberger and Grant Griesbach pushed each other every race last year. And so I think people know that it's going to come down. This all starts at the Dells. Your season, you need to start getting points early. And so I think there's this different energy around this series this year. And again, it's hard to beat the schedule. We're returning with Tundra to Marshfield instead of just being a standalone race. It's kind of our reunion with Tundra since 2021 or 2020 or something like that. And we're going to the final Bev and Bob Ashbrenner Memorial. And so when you look at the schedule, there's just not one race that's like, oh, this race doesn't mean anything. And so I think the fans will see that. I think they'll feel that. And so just where the competition in the series can continue to go and evolve, I think will speak for itself.
For sure.
I will say the other thing on the social media side, your post at the beginning of the winter time of what would you change in the truck series?
Oh yeah, that was a bad idea. I'm not gonna lie, but we rolled that one out.
It was at least from our standpoint, I
Yeah.
think it was interesting to page through some of those to see both the interaction from fans, but to see interaction from drivers as well, as far as like the things that they were like seeing. Obviously, you've got your competition meetings behind the scenes that you guys only essentially know about, but you got to at least be able to get something out of those conversations that happen on the social media side as well.
Yeah, I do take ideas from people. As much as people may think I'm like this evil dictator, I do listen to people. I just have no time unless I post openly and say, hey, give me your ideas. My biggest thing is always just come talk to me directly. I'm probably one of the most accessible people, whether it be at the racetrack or on social. My phone numbers, if you're friends with me, my phone number's on my Facebook. Like, call me. So I just don't tolerate any like internet bashing just because it's just not how I roll. But the fans have ideas and the racers have ideas. Sometimes they're a bit out there. Sometimes I have a hard time not just like snapping back and saying your teacher lied to you and they said there was no dumb question. Like there are some dumb things that people say, but it's eye opening, and I appreciate. I want to get the fans to feel like, and the racers to feel like they're a part of this. Like this isn't just me. This is a collective unit that has all built this together, and I want to keep it that way. Now we have to have order and control and things like that, but again, we're all open ears, and I don't say we do everything perfectly. That there's areas of opportunity, and at times fans and racers can come up with some idea that I'm like, oh, I never even thought of that. That's great. Let's see where can we implement this. At the end of the day, it's a racetrack. Like this isn't rocket science, and it goes back to what I mentioned before is I don't want this to be a circus show. Like this isn't a sideshow. This isn't just built for entertainment. That there are some fundamentals and traditions that I want to be able to hold on to. That's been the thread work or been threaded through this sport's history. And so I don't think we can lose that. And so I think there may be a time and a place for evolution, but even Savannah Bananas, like the core of what they do is they still play baseball,
Yep.
and so it's different. It's a different game. It's different entertainment, but they haven't changed the fundamentals of the game. Maybe how they get there is different. But at the end of the day, it's still baseball. So at the end of the day, I want somebody to be able to come and see this is old school short track Saturday night racing. I want them to be able to see that and feel that when they leave the racetrack.
Yep.
For sure. And you've kind of talked about it a little bit in terms of tradition stuff. Few things that you've done in the last couple summers, and I'm going to ask that they're coming back. Would be the summer shootout and the dash for cash. Are those?
Yeah. So midsummer shootout, we're actually making it even bigger, thanks to Finish Line Towing. Johnny Van there down there in the Madison area. He's come on board as the series or as the midsummer shootout sponsor. So that'll be a 5-race deal again. Ends at Dells for the Solder, so work backwards from there. I think it'll start the second. I think it starts the prelude. Will be the round of 20. So top 12 will get a bye again. So again, I don't want to change up any of that. And then Dash for Cash will be back again. I just talked to Marcus from Pit Crew Barbecue about what the qualifier races were. He's coming to Fast, so the final will be at Fast again. So similar dollar amounts there, but again, just a way to create some in-season excitement, as well as put some money back in the fans' hands. And I think it speaks to what this means is when, Brandon lost it by one position last year and really didn't want a second place trophy. He's like, he won the first one in 24 and missed out by one position on the 25. And so that's what I want. I want people to be mad when they get the second place trophy and not the first place trophy. And so we'll look to continue those. I don't have any other crazy. I think John Wood wants to pay $100 for a halfway bonus. So that may be something new this year. Something small again, just to help these racers. We'll do lap sponsor money probably at Fest again. I want to keep that a Fest deal. I think we're working on a sponsorship for the duels at Slinger, so that way we can give a little bit of money back there. So they'll be like kind of a king of the duel, and so we'll keep a 2 race points structure from that race. And so some minor, I consider a minor, maybe other people don't. I haven't had any new crazy big idea driving somewhere that I say we have to implement this. So right now we're working on the fundamentals. We're working on just really building up the contingency sponsors. Just the next big thing that I want to be able to do is probably get together some traveling trucker program to reward top 10 in points, similar to like the Stars Platinum deal. It's been around since the 80s, in the Arco Stars and Cars days. And so that's probably the next thing. But it takes money. So, until we get about a $15,000 a year sponsor, those deals are kind of hard to put in place.
For sure.
Let's say I think we're getting towards the end of things that we kind of had on our list. I'll kind of give the floor to you. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or anything else that you wanted to promote on your end at all? Or
Yes, obviously just go to MidwestTruckSeries.com, support our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be in the position that we're at. We gave away over $25,000 worth of points and contingency sponsors prizes at our banquet. So those top 14 and owners, or 14 owners that completed 75%, I think they were all there. We gave a lot of money back to them. And so obviously if we can keep money in the racers' pockets and product in the racers' pockets, that helps keep them coming back.
Yep.
And then just get out and support the racetrack. If we have 35, I joke that, we may not have 40, but we may have 35. It's still 3 more than we've ever had there. There's a potential that if we had 40, we would be sending 16 trucks home, and that'd be adding 4 more to our feature than what we normally would. And we're not far removed from the days of only having 16 trucks show up to the races. And so I remember the first B feature we had, I think it was 2022 at Plover. That was the first B feature in series history. And so we're only 4 or 5 years removed from that. And so to think where we're at today, again, it's a lot to do with the officials and the team that we have that works behind the scenes, but so much of it's the racers and the fans and the crews and the families and just the time and the money that they spend on building these trucks that they can't race anywhere else. That's the fascinating thing, is it's not a late model that if they get mad at us, they just go to another racetrack. They're kind of stuck with it. And so the fact that we're still growing and it's kind of it's a unique vehicle that can only race with us is awesome. And it's people across the country are starting to notice. And so, I talked to one promoter that they're interested in possibly having like a 3-year conversion of their trucks down there over to what we are building up here. And so that'd be pretty cool if we get to a point in the next 3 to 4 years that Brandon Reichenberger or James Swan or some of these guys, maybe they can go travel to Texas or Alabama and go race a show. Maybe their support series at like a race like the Rattler, and they get to go travel down there too. And so I think it'll happen. Again, we're starting to get noticed on a national level, which is, we don't do any of this for that. We just do it because we love the sport, and wherever the cards fall is where they'll fall. And so I think we're set to have a really good season in 2026. 14 real solid races. As of right now, 13 of the 14 are streamed on some streaming service. Sorry, we're on like 6 different streaming services this year, but it's just how it's going to be. It's probably the one negative of the streaming service world right now. But it is what it is. I understand. The best thing you can do though is put it on your calendar and go buy a ticket.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, go buy a ticket, eat a hot dog, sit with your friends in the stands, and that's still the best way to experience this sport that we all love. And so we have 14 really good races, and my hope is when I'm talking to you at the end of the year, we had another awesome points battle, but
Yep.
we'll see in a few months.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. That's all I got.
Well, awesome.
I'll say I'm just ready for race season to start. This warm weather today is just, it's one of those like, let's get to the racetrack, right? We're ready to
Yeah.
go.
In 3 days, there's going to be snow on the ground again, though. So we don't.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yep.
Yeah, so we don't know. That's the beauty of this icebreaker race, is it could be 70 or it could be 40, and then we get to the Joe Shear and it could be 40 there, and it had been 70 for the icebreaker. So nothing like Midwest weather right now, but hopefully it stays nice. We've had more nice icebreakers than we've had bad ones, and so we'll continue to hope for that and get ready for the season.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap it up here. Like I said, I'm excited to get back to the racetrack, just as I'm sure everybody else is ready to get to the racetrack. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we can't wait to have you again, probably at the end of the year for sure. Maybe we could sneak a mid-season one in too. We'll see.
I'll have to jump on one of your live podcasts again. We'll just do like a McAfee type secondary broadcast.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Well, I appreciate everything you guys do too. I know it doesn't go unnoticed, and so we'll see you at the track, and we'll see you throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. So keep an eye out for the episode, obviously coming out this week, and we'll have our normal episode with some race recaps going on later in the week as well. But until next time, we'll see you on next episode of the Tuesday Track Talk.